Okay, hi, Romi.
Hi, that was not fair to catch the last like 2 minutes. I was like, now I have to like get on it because I want to know what the 3 minute exercise is.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy, I'm so glad you took the time to talk with me because, like, honestly, I feel like as much as I wish I could have erased last Wednesday, I feel like it happened so that I could learn from it. So,
Yep, yep.
especially since it's just so relevant, and feel free to like, however we work this out together, like, feel free to use this example however you see fit. But I'm just going to give you like a
So
little run. I don't,
just a sec, Romi. Should I
yeah.
just keep recording this in case I want to use this as something?
Yeah, I don't mind. It's just like more of a testimonial than anything else. So I'd love
Okay.
for people to be able to learn from it. And I don't know why I'm on my phone,
Uh,
so my face is not showing. I'm not sure. And I kind of want to, oh, here, start video. There. Hi.
okay. You're
There.
with your
That's,
horse.
yeah, he's in the back there.
Yeah.
So it was here this last Wednesday. Um, the lay of the land was such that the vet was coming, um, as she does every 6 weeks, with the farrier because one of the horses here gets sedated while she gets her feet done. Okay. Um, Always a weird energy in the barn that day. It's as though the horses know before those two even arrive. I know that they know because I can feel the horses acting differently. This time, on top of it, Bastille was going to be getting his first vaccine from the vet here. I That's part of the reason I asked you my question earlier, is because I was not feeling very secure about vaccines. Just given what we're doing, we're not traveling, we're not going anywhere. But unfortunately, although it's a private facility, I am boarding. So
Absolutely.
she
Yep.
gave me the get vaccinated or get out
Yep.
conversation, which was fine and fair. So, okay. So that's the stage. Horses, Bastille was totally fine. We were connected. I felt we were very congruent. I was out in the field with him and I stayed out there for a while until the rest of the herd was brought in, as they were rearing and bucking and pulling her this way and that. And it just was that was sort of how the day started. Everyone got into their stalls, and Bastille's neighbor here, he needed to get, I guess, pre-medicated with some oral Banamine prior to his vaccines. He was getting vaccines as well. And so when his owner went in, he immediately started expressing massive anxiety, throwing his butt towards her, pinning his ears, baring his teeth. And I'll just say that the manner in which it was handled was not, it wasn't handled. It was more so like, would you look at him? Look at how crazy he's being. And then she just kept kind of trying to really hold his head and squirt it in. Some of it would land in the ceiling and it was just kind of mayhem. And so meanwhile, my horse is standing at attention, high neck, ears perked, watching the whole thing. Like I could tell he was like, what is happening? So the owner of that horse said, I'm just going to leave the stall. So she kind of just left, and she's like, I'm just going to leave and try again in a minute. So she left the barn for a moment, and I went into the neighbor horse's stall and just sort of stood with him, kind of did a little bit of the neck work I've been learning, and just got him to lower his head and lick and chew. And I honestly did it because selfishly, I sort of did it more so Bastille could see that it was all okay. So then she came back. She actually then went in, and she was like, oh, he seems a bit more relaxed. Started to try to shoot the stuff in his mouth again, and he was, like all over the place. And she didn't even finish getting the medication in and just sort of left loose ends, right? So during this time, then I think I had proceeded to just sort of brush up Bastille and just sort of do our own thing. However, this is where it goes. This is where I feel I made a mistake, and I'm seeking input as to how you rebound from a moment like this. There was nothing about me that was fearful about the day's events. I was feeling very confident about his interactions with the vet. I had planned on giving him some oral CBD paste prior to the vet, just because I really like the company that I found, and I like it in lieu of something else. And being that I had never worked with this vet before, I wanted it to be a positive experience. So I had given him oral medications, not medications, but I've given him the CBD before. I've played with electrolytes before, just to get him used to, a syringe type item in his mouth. And the first few times we did it, like, over the course of this last year, he was scared. He acted reactive. And I just very slowly, touch, release, got him to smell it, got him to put it in his mouth. It was a very long process that I felt like we had worked towards a comfort level. So I really didn't go in there with any kind of concern or fear. What I missed was that he already had it in him, I believe, from witnessing what had happened next door. So I went in to his stall, put his halter on. He was like, "Oh, hey." And I said, "Hey, we're gonna, I just have these conversations, right? I'm gonna give you some CBD. It's just gonna make you feel more relaxed." And I presented the syringe, and he flipped out. Like, "Run, she's got a gun." And just kept trying to pull away and pull away and pull away. And I remained calm through the whole process. However, we really got nowhere. It just kind of kept escalating. I would calm him. I would wait. We would breathe. He would reach a level of relaxation, but he wasn't fully relaxed. I felt like, given the work we've done in your class, I was doing a really good job at managing my responses, breathing, stepping away, centering my thoughts, actually working on some just points in the body. I felt like this was going to go okay. And I knew that he had done it before. And I thought, this is something I'm going to get him through. But honestly, the moment he saw that syringe, it was just a complete flight reaction. So we did that for about 15 minutes or so in his stall. And then I kind of started to feel like it was getting a bit dangerous in his stall. And I also thought he might have needed a change of scenery. So I took him down, we took a little walk, and I took him down into the indoor arena. And just kind of tried to change the subject a little bit and then represented, and literally the same sort of reactions. And so where I feel I went wrong was I didn't call it. I just kept trying. And while it didn't escalate to the point of him like pulling away from me and running away, or, he didn't run over me, he didn't try to bite me or hurt me, I just was convinced that I could show him that this was okay. Okay. And we really got no further than maybe a snort when I presented it near his nose. So at that time, the vet shows up and the farrier shows up. And I'm like, okay. So now he hears those trucks. He hears those voices. So I'm sort of like, I'm put this in my sweatshirt pocket, and we're just going to hang out in here. So I asked the girl that helps out at the bar, and I said, "Can you just send the vet down here when she's done doing her thing?" Because I was prepared to tell her, look, I think this didn't really go the way I planned it. I don't think we're setting him up for success. I was going to bag the vaccine thing for that day. So she comes down, and I kind of gave her a brief version of what I just told you. And I mean, he's met her quite a few times, but she's only just done a basic exam on him. and he had dorm gel in him at that time. And that was very early on in the process here. She walks right up to him, scratches him, which is not typical for him, and goes, "Hey, buddy, you want to get your vaccine?" And goes, boop, and like sticks the needle in and vaccinates him. Okay. So I'm kind of shocked. I think he's shocked. And so I was like, wow, well, I just spent the last 45 minutes fighting a fight I didn't have to fight. And now I've created a whole separate issue because, at some point he's going to potentially need something orally. And I have now left him. So let me just finish. So she said that what happened that way. We rewarded him. We made a huge deal about what a brave boy he was. I then just walked him and just hung out with him for a while, really let him relax. And I ended by getting to the point where he would smell the CBD and be okay. Like smelling it was fine, but that's it. Don't try to get that thing near the corner of my mouth. Don't don't do anything else. Just so I left it at that. Let him graze for like an hour and called it a day. Okay. The interesting part is, well, I think that was all kind of interesting, but that evening, he has gotten to the point where he's allowed the barn owner to turn him out just actually in the last 3 weeks, after she's sort of accepted some of the things I've been trying to tell her all along. And that night, he wanted nothing to do with her. He wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't get near her. He would back into the corner of the stall. And so she sure enough called me at 9 o'clock and was like, "I'm not turning out tonight. I don't know what's going on." And I'm not trying to slay anybody. Like, I mean, I don't mean to talk badly about anyone, but I do feel like it had, to me, it was because he witnessed her lack of like attunement to her horse. And so it was like, hey, if you didn't hear him, you aren't touching me. And then the whole thing on top of it, I didn't help at all by not knowing when to stop and trying to get a silly syringe in his mouth for almost an hour. So this is where we sit. I will say that I can say confidently that I didn't really have a lot of fear involved in the process. And I feel really good about saying that, because that's especially since, I hadn't broke my wrist 6 weeks or 6 months earlier in a similar situation. So I'm really thankful for everything you've taught me with that regard, but I'm still sitting in this situation where I feel like I royally messed up. He was indeed mad at me for like a day. He was like, every time I got near his mouth, he was like, "What are you going to do? We're fine now." But he definitely did. And everyone else, and I haven't really talked to anyone else other than one person, to be honest with you. And they're all like, "You're crazy. Like, the horse needs to learn that you're going to give him a syringe and he's got to be okay with it." And like that same day, I listened to the part about when you were like, "Oh, what? So imagine someone pinning you down and tickling you, and I hate being tickled." Right. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I did to this poor horse for an hour.
Yeah.
So that's it. So where do I go from here?
I think, the things that are coming to my mind are, in your mind, you are focused on wanting to make it better for Bastille.
Mm-hmm.
And because you were so focused on that, you forgot about what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so your desire to make it better for him put you in a place where you were blind to what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you tried, the more he spoke.
Yeah, exactly.
And so sometimes you can only help from a place where you can get some acceptance for that help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree. It would be nice just to walk out there and be able to put the syringe in his mouth and give him whatever you wanted. I have one horse where that is easy.
Mm-hmm.
I have another horse where that's medium, and I have another horse where that's almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the horses have different backgrounds. They have different things that they are dealing with. I have to work with where they're at. So the horse that I can't get the syringe in his mouth, I can certainly squirt all of the stuff in the palm of my hand and mix a little bit of honey and stuff in it, and he'll lick it right off my hand.
Yeah.
So that's how he gets his warm medicine when I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The other horse that is a little bit iffy, she doesn't care about the tube going in her mouth. She doesn't want the stuff that's coming out the other end.
Mm.
And so, same thing, I've had to doctor it up and put it back into the tube so that it changes the taste, because
Mm-hmm.
she has no trouble with the syringe in her mouth. All of her reaction comes from because she doesn't like what comes out of the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other horse, of course, just doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Just all different personalities. And so I try to work with where they're at.
So I feel like, given his last experience, and I know this ultimately isn't about the syringe, because I know I've seen him be okay. I feel like what I missed the most is that he saw an unfavorable experience with a syringe, and then I neglected to really hold weight to that. I mean, I actually out audibly said to the owner, I said, "Look at how much Bastille is watching this whole thing." And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, haha," you
Yeah.
know. But I said it, but I didn't act on it. I feel as
It-
though if I would have given him maybe an hour, or taken him out of the barn, walked him around, not presented anything to him,
or
just sort
left
of,
him out
mm-hmm,
and the vet come out there. So he does not get to see or feel any of the stuff in a closed setting. So
mm-hmm,
all of this negative energy stuff, all of this stuff that he could observe, because you got to remember, when they're in a stall, they're trapped.
yeah,
They have nowhere to go.
mm-hmm,
And so it doesn't matter how much anything is going on in that barn. He has nowhere to go.
mm-hmm,
And that's going to escalate a whole lot of things, because he can't move around to dissipate it. He can't move away from it. He can't move to the edge of it. He has no choice. He's stuck there in it.
mm-hmm,
And we forget a lot about how our care for them really limits everything that they evolved to be able to do to deal with this kind of stuff, right?
mm-hmm,
We forget about that because we look at a stall like it's a nice, warm, safe place.
right,
We don't stop to think about how they view that stall. We don't think about how they can't move away from anything. They don't get to choose who their stall next door buddy is.
mm-hmm,
They don't get to choose any of this stuff. And so when we start looking at it from like I'll call it like a big holistic kind of picture. And when a horse has high self-preservation, all sorts of things can be setting them off. things we don't even recognize because we have it every time you open a magazine. The nice barns all look like this, right?
Mhm.
So we have that ingrained into us. And so we have to start kind of paying attention more to what they're saying and what they're asking for from us. And sometimes that means we have to do a lot of playing and start to see, okay, so in this kind of setting, would his response have been the same if it would have been outdoors and we could have moved a little bit away and it wasn't confined in a space? And really start to play to find out what he actually really needs from you
Mhm.
to help him manage himself.
See, I was always told by the trainer who had him before, and this is, I think, just his belief more than anything. He's like, oh, he feels really safe when he's backed up in the corner in the stall. Yeah, he feels like, because then he knows nothing's coming from behind him and nothing's coming from the one side of him, and he feels safe there. But there was nothing safe about this experience, which is why I took him down to the indoor arena. You know, in hindsight, I probably should have taken him out because he's most comfortable when he's out, and that's not a surprise. But that is why I took him down there, because I was like, he feels like there is like a, this imminent danger in his stall and he can't get away from it.
Yes.
Um,
So on the energy level, I want to talk about that when a farrier comes or a vet comes, they're coming to do a job.
mhm,
They have a purpose. They don't have all day.
mhm,
So they have intent. And so that energy sends a message. I'm coming. Chunk, 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 right?
yeah, that's
And
definitely what is felt every time we have this experience.
yes. And so what he's teaching you is how sensitive he is to the energy in the environment.
Mhm,
And so it's also teaching you how easily you get triggered.
mhm,
So what my guess is, what I'm picking up on is, even though you're keeping your mind in a better place, your body is still having a response.
mhm,
And so that's why you were so concerned about trying to minimize it for him. Because
mhm,
without realizing, the two of you are feeding off each other energetically. And so the discomfort you're feeling, you're wanting to have that comfort by fixing him, if I use that terminology, right?
that's fair. Yeah.
And so we need to kind of step back a bit and try to learn about that and say, well, how much of this is because he needs it? How much of it is because I think he needs it so I feel better?
So I can say I did this for him.
Yes. And so start playing and dissecting a little bit and work with that. So you're very empathetic. And so when you haven't totally tuned into that level of empathy that I sense that you have, you are impacted by everything around you. And
Mhm,
your body is having a physiological response to it.
mhm,
And so he's going to read that. And
yeah.
so, and that is where, in my opinion, you'll get yourself into trouble because you're trying to fix something and the desire to make it better is so strong because you know what it's feeling like in here, that that's overriding the information that you're getting coming down the pipe.
Mhm. Honestly, the the energy, the information that I got was well before I even witnessed, well before I even witnessed what happened with his neighbor. I walked in with him, and it was really wonderful because we were both standing in the field, and I was like, we're going to stand here and just let the dust settle. And we were talking, and he was fine. And at that moment, there was like a fleeing thought where I was like, you know what? Today is not the day. Today is not the day. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to have to make Jane come back again. And I don't want to have to tell she's going to get, the owner's going to get mad at me because I was supposed to vaccinate. And then I was like, I really have no reason for saying that. You're probably just saying that because you're wimping out. Like that dialogue did happen prior to all this going down. And I really honestly should have paid attention to it.
Yes. And so the part of the dialogue where it could have been, if we want to use wimping out,
Yeah. Yes.
could have been that you already were sensing what was going on in the barn.
Yeah.
And so identifying it and deciding I'm going to stay out here where it feels like this is not wimping out.
Yeah.
That is making a healthy choice for both yourself and Bastille.
Yeah. So moving forward, how do you move past these hiccups? Because I think, if
I think
you know,
that to answer that, you have to look at it like it's not a hiccup,
okay.
because otherwise it's something that you got to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes an issue. And then it becomes something that you focus on.
Yeah.
So we want to remove all of that. Horses have very powerful memories. And he's going to associate a huge part of that memory with the feeling that was in the barn.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that when you are somewhere else and you guys are just doing your own thing and you don't have anything in you that's thinking about the syringe being a hiccup, he's not going to have any reaction to the syringe.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to work to get yourself to where you're not concerned that this is going to be an issue, because as soon as you are changing your energetic flow. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to be approaching it with an intent rather than playing.
Yes. I was thinking of just getting some like applesauce and just whenever I felt right, not even planning it, just that would be the next time this subject even remotely gets talked about between
Yeah.
us.
Or maybe you make the empty syringe something that becomes part of your interactions. So perhaps you have the syringe and maybe he likes honey. I don't know what he likes, right? But maybe he likes honey. And so you have a little bit of honey on it. And so you're brushing and doing stuff all the way. And then you pull this out of your box and you go like, oh, hey, you want to lick of this? And he sniffs it and you put it away.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And eventually he might kind of like, oh, and then once he gets a taste, well, now he's going to be looking and watching for that because this is going to be something good. And so it's part of our routine. It's part of playing around. And your goal isn't to even really have him take a lick in the beginning. It's the fact that he gets a whiff and you put it back so that he's curiously engaged and not feeling any pressure that this has to come towards him.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And so that will help you change your mindset too.
Yeah. Yes, because there won't be any kind of intention behind it.
Absolutely. So the quicker we can get rid of that for you and make this again about play and exploration, because that's where he feels safe. And so do
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And so then we keep it safe for both of you.
Yeah. Thank you. That that puts a better perspective on it than the one I got here.
Yes, because you're breathing now. You weren't in the
Oh,
beginning. You were holding
she
your
said,
breath. And it was so tight in
oh,
your chest.
I know. Well, I was honestly, I was like the person that I, bounced the situation off of, and I actually referenced just anonymously, but I just said, I heard this analogy about tickling, and to which she responded, well, if someone tickles you and you say stop and they stop, but then they come back and tickle you for a little longer and a little longer and a little longer, eventually you're going to submit to the tickling. And I was like, that doesn't feel right.
Oh, no, no,
You know,
no.
she's like, you may actually end up liking tickling. And I was like, no, I won't, because I know I don't.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing because it's about a relationship, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm a tickler and you hate being tickled and we have a relationship, I can't tickle. It's
Yeah.
that simple, right? Because
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable.
Right.
Now I can tickle other people.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of how I refer to wearing many different hats when you're with your horse. Because what he needs today, you slide that hat on.
Yeah.
There's no judgment. There's no anything. This is just what we need.
Yeah.
And so the more hats you're comfortable wearing, then it means you just change, and then it happens intuitively. And
Yeah.
everything changes. How you approach changes, how you halter changes, and it changes depending on what's being asked for in that moment.
Yes, the hat that day ought to have been, we're going to reschedule on a day when it's just you, me, and Bastille. That's what I felt all along. And granted, he took the vaccine, but honestly, I think he was in such a state of, I think it shocked him more than, I think it just surprised him. So, that's a whole separate issue, that
Yeah,
now I feel like he kind of, I feel like she kind of sneak attacked him.
a little bit, but I'll explain that again too. So she walked up with no thoughts, no
Yeah.
cares, no concern, no anything. So he had nothing to feed off of from her.
Yes.
And so therefore, giving the vaccine was exceptionally easy.
Yeah.
And so had she walked up trying to hide the needle, trying to envision that this was going to be a difficult process, the outcome would have been totally different because he had read everything.
Yeah.
So he had no way of predicting anything. And that needle didn't hurt.
Yeah.
And she stood there and did her whole thing, and nothing changed in her demeanor.
Yeah.
She didn't think, aha, I got you.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing changed in her demeanor. And so you can learn from that as well.
Yeah.
Because her approach was not in anticipation of anything.
Right. And she honestly hadn't been a part of my little bubble I created for the last 40 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no. And so kind of really important to look at that.
Yeah.
Because it means you have the same power to do the same things. And on the days when your headspace has no agenda, has no way of evaluation, you're just going to see Bastille because that's your magic place.
Mhm.
What happens between the two of you is probably way different than on the days when you go with an agenda. And when you go with an agenda, part of that's because somebody has put in your head that you ought to be doing this, or you ought to be doing that, or you should be doing this by now, or you should be doing that. And so you're trying to match up to the outside pressure.
Yeah.
And so then you're not in the same place congruency wise, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's where you get into trouble. So like if you thought, oh, I wonder if he'll be happy with the saddle versus, oh, well, we're doing the saddle. I don't see anything wrong with it. Like I have, this is not something I'm wondering about.
Yeah.
So those outcomes are going to be all totally different. And so it really starts with us, and it starts with, and that's why I preach so much about getting out of our heads, because our
Mhm.
heads get us into trouble,
Yeah.
and getting back into here, because this will tell us. So we'll know that when we go to lift the saddle up, now is not the right time to put it on. And we know that if we just hold it, then we get the signal that, yeah, it's okay now. Because now we're operating from this sense of feel, the sense of our communication with our energy. And so now we don't ever have to get in our heads and wonder about how this is going to go, because we can trust that our inner guidance is going to navigate us through all of this.
Mhm.
And it might not
Oh,
look the same 2 days in a row.
yeah. And I know it when I feel it. You can't describe it. It's a little hard to describe, but you know it. And
Absolutely.
I want to bottle it up. Just,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. But that's the thing about it. So once you felt it, you know it, and then you want
No
it.
difference.
So now it becomes a head thing. So now you're trying to say in your head, I want this. Well,
Right.
it doesn't work that way because we're in our head.
Yeah.
It only happens when we're in here.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is very sensitive and very not sensitive. He is very attuned to so much and has like taught me more than I probably taught him. And it's a beautiful place to be, you know. I think I get caught in this little ditch on the side of the road where I get caught in this narrative of it's my job to teach him that he doesn't have to fear life because he has spent so much time in fear of people, of situations, of intentions.
So to address that, when you feel like you have to do something to protect him,
Mhm.
you are unconsciously signaling to him that there's something to be concerned about.
Yeah.
So changing that will make a big difference. So if I spray paint a circle and I think I'm going to have to get my horse used to the spray painted circle, I'm already sending him the issue that the spray painted circle is bad.
It's something to get
Right?
used to. Yeah.
Yes. And so if I spray paint the circle and then I'm leading my horse with no thoughts or concerns about the circle, their reaction to the circle is going to be totally different than if, well, I'm going to spray paint circles today because I'm going to get my horse used to some different stuff here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I'm going to spray paint circles because I'm curious about how he sees colors.
Yeah.
So now we're going to walk amongst the colors. And I'm just going to observe peripherally what colors he has issues with versus
Yeah.
not. Oh, okay. Well, he didn't like the yellow. Okay, well, what happens if I put a black dot in the middle of the yellow? Does that make it worse for him or better for him? And so now you're playing. He's exploring the environment in which you're setting up to get him used to different stimuli. But the whole feeling around it is different. He's being allowed his expression. You are the facilitator to give him the chance to have these interactions without you feeling like you need to make it safe for him. Because that changes it.
That is a huge part of, I think, that is a huge part holding me back.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it changes the energy.
Yeah.
And then you worry about, oh, well, what if I do the wrong thing? What if this creates a bad reaction in him? So I'll dissect that for a little bit. So you're responsible for you and your body. He's responsible for him and his body. The two of you go somewhere. You can have your reaction to whatever it is. He can have his reaction to it. If his reaction engages you, you actually compound his reaction. So it's kind of like pouring gas on the fire. Because as soon as you think, oh no, you have reaffirmed to him that he was correct. If you have no reaction, his reactions to that same stimuli will get less and less and less because he has nothing to feed off of, only himself. And as you get stronger in managing your energy in here, you will actually be able to send him calming energy. You will actually be able to use your heart energy to slow his heart rate down. You will actually be able to make all of his experiences better. That's what you want to do, but doing it from a place in here and not in here.
Yeah, and that's
because in here
huge.
is your enemy. This here is your beautiful friend. But we as humans are in here.
Yeah, it just goes to deep. I mean, I had here when I was out in the pasture. Like the moment I walked in the barn, it was like I switched the breaker and it just went up here, and then I never even acknowledged it until getting to reflect on it now.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And so when we start looking at all of these things, and so for him to get over his fears, you have to get to a place where you don't have any. And you're okay allowing him to have his expression within boundaries. So like my horses can have an expression, but they can't pull the rope out of my hand. They can't run over top of me. And I don't want them acting like an idiot, but you can certainly have your expression, whether that be jump and snort or blow or pace back and forth at the end of the line or whatever it is you want to do. You're welcome to your expression.
Yeah.
But we have boundaries about how that works, right?
Yeah.
And when my horse is having an expression, I never look at my horse because I do not want to put forward eye pressure to add to what they're already feeling. So a lot of times I will actually just turn away. I will watch peripherally, but I do not want them to use any part of me as gasoline for their fire, because that's their stuff.
Yeah, I was definitely building a big fire that day.
Yes. Yeah. And so
It was
That's
driven with good intention. Like, again, there's intention,
absolutely the best intentions.
but it was intention.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And we let go of that.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It is hard because the first place we want to go to is up here.
Yeah.
Because we want to go, okay, now what am I going to do? I got to figure this all out. Well, those are all head things. And if we can come here, our body has the answer for us way before our brain can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just innately know. We will just feel it.
Yeah.
And there we go. And so another way to describe this is, so sometimes here people come and we work together. And so it's about knowing when to go and knowing when to wait. So no matter how reactive your horse is, if you work within the constraints that they have, not what you think they should have, but where they are, you go way further because you're never pushing them to a place where they need to react back.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best way to describe this is you start leading the horse away from other horses, and it doesn't want to leave the other horses. So you can focus on the fact that it doesn't want to leave the other horses, and oh no, this is going to escalate into this, and oh well, this is going to happen next. But you're all in your head here. You're not here. So if you're here and you're leading the horse away, and so as soon as you start feeling any little bit of tension or whatever, and then you turn and you lead it another direction, it's kind of going closer to where it's going, but you don't change your cadence. You're still leading, but now you're going with the flow. So then you come out of that, now you're heading a little bit further away and you feel a tension come up. So now you do another zigzag over here and then come back. And then maybe on this time around, you're jumping up and down or you're doing some other crazy stuff, but you're never, ever looking at the horse. This is just you because you get to do your stuff. They get to do their stuff. Their job is to be mindful of you and not walk into you, not trample over you or whatever, but you get to have your expression. And so maybe you feel like going, yay, right?
Yeah.
So while you're doing all of this kind of stuff within their comfort zone, eventually you've gotten way out of their comfort zone and they're way farther away from all those other horses than they've ever been. And they're not upset about it. And you haven't had any of the interactions or any of the behaviors that you've had to try to work them out of because you've stayed within the boundary of where they're able. And so it never escalates. So you keep them in a place where they can be responsive and learning rather than pushing them too far to where now they're reacting.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my horses, once they get into that reactive state, I might as well put them away because there's nothing I'm going to do is going to get them out of it. So I have to work under her threshold. And just because I did it yesterday doesn't mean I can do the same thing today because her threshold is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to work within those. And yet when I have her and I'm riding and I'm doing everything that I want to do with her, no one would ever even imagine that she's that reactive. They have no idea. Lots of people would want to buy her. Well, I couldn't sell her for love nor money because I couldn't do that to her because she could not exist very many places.
Mm-hmm.
Because people would constantly be pushing her beyond. And so her and I do a little dance, but it's invisible. But I can ride her out alone. I can load her in a trailer. I can take her wherever I want. I can do everything that I want with her. I just have to be very mindful how I ask, when I ask, and make sure I keep her in a place where she's thinking.
Mhm. So to kind of pull it all together, do you mind, is it too like hard for me to ask if now that you know the kind of the details of that experience, if you had if there was a do-over, what would you have done?
With the horse that's really reactive,
Well, really, he's really reactive, and you know that there's an energy and congruency kind of in the space. But you know that what you're asking of him, he's done a bazillion times before. But then, he proses the reaction Bastille had, which was like, that's going to kill me.
yes. So if you were going to do over, it's about really thinking about not pushing past where they're capable of giving back.
Mhm.
And so to relate this to another person or to a little kid. So if we relate it to them, so with your little young person, you know that you have a certain way that you have to speak and approach to get them to want to buy into what it is you want them to do when you know full well they kind of have doubts.
Mhm.
And you know that you can't rush it, and you know that you can't force it, because as soon as you do, there will be a big reaction. With a human, you don't have to rely quite so much on here because it's visual. You're used to looking at all of their expressions. You're used to using your visual acuity to pick up on a huge amount of things with another human.
Mhm.
So it would be rare for you to make a mistake unless you were tired, rushed, or stressed about something.
Yeah.
So with the horse, they have a gazillion different ways to communicate, and they're communicating all the time. It's really subtle. And so what I get to see a lot is people miss all of those little subtleties. And by the time they realize they're in over their head, it's too late. They're trying to fix it now.
Yeah.
And so it kind of can't be fixed, because it's like taking my candy bar when I didn't want to share it with you. And now that I'm all upset, you're trying to give the candy bar back. Well, it doesn't fix it, right?
Yeah.
So shouldn't have taken the candy bar in the first place, because you should have been able to read enough, right? With
Right.
humans, it's real easy, but we miss all these subtleties with horses. And so when you do part one, start November, part one will really teach you so much about how to learn what they're saying and their language, and to tune into these little subtleties that are so small that you miss them.
Yeah.
And as an example, the area around their eyes. So when they're relaxed, a circle like this big around each eye, that whole area is soft. And because that's the only word I have to describe it, it's soft. As soon as something comes to their attention, about a half inch below their eyeball starts to tighten. And it's subtle, but it's there.
Mhm.
The longer that stressor stays in place, it will actually go down into like a big triangle area. It will all get tight. If it stays longer, you'll actually start to see their veins and stuff stick out. If a horse is living chronically in a stress state, they start to get like little puffy bags underneath their eyes. because that tension is stopping the lymphatic flow. It's stopping a lot of things from happening inside their body. And so that would mean when the horse has those little bags like that, they're going to be even more reactive because all this stuff that's gone awry in their physiological body hasn't been dissipating, hasn't been whatever. And if
Mhm.
we've only ever seen our horse with the bags under its eyes, we think that's normal.
Right.
We have no idea where our horse at physiologically. And so, yeah, so you learn a lot of that stuff in part one about really honing in on what is that face saying? What's the neck saying? What's this overall thing? Because it's there. The subtle shifts in their eyes. Yeah, the nostrils. It's
Yeah.
all really, really there. And so, yeah, I think that if you get to a place where you can get your mind hanging out somewhere else and are just trusting here, even though you're not cluing in visually, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And then the visual stuff will come because now your curiosity will try to match up this with what you see.
Mhm.
And when this changes, you're going to be looking for something there to see what changed to make this change.
Yes.
And so that's how you will develop a visual acuity, by playing and going, oh, that's what happened when I moved the chair. Oh, what do I see there? Oh, I don't see anything. Oh, okay. Well, I'll wait another time and I'll look somewhere different, because it's for sure there. It just means you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So don't ever say to yourself, oh, I didn't see anything.
Right.
It just means you need to play more.
Yeah. He's a good subject with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because his nervous system is so out there right at the moment.
Mhm.
That means for sure you're going to feel everything that's going on in his body. And so you just got to start looking and make it playful.
Yeah. And
Like this is a game.
I also think that I need to be, and I am in many ways. I'm still working on it where I am with him and just the environment, my like horse community, if you will. But I need to not think twice when I know that something's not right for him.
Mm.
I mean, not in this overreactive protective state, but just in that feeling of, I knew that day wasn't, I just knew it wasn't there. It wasn't right. It wasn't from the get-go. And I just need to be, I need to disregard what other people are going to say.
Absolutely.
And it's
Uh,
not as if it wasn't even that I cared what they were saying. It's like I didn't want to be an inconvenience. And that is just another one of my own things I have to not bring here.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And so I call that giving away your power.
Yeah.
So really easy to think, well, they might know more than me,
Mhm.
or I'm going to look like a weakling, or not a horse person, or there's something wrong with me if I don't manage this simple task.
Mhm.
So all those things go on, and that sets us up because we're no longer trusting ourselves, and that's why I call it giving away our power, because it would be like me going to a horse trainer, and I kind of know what I need to do to get the most from my horse, but I'm being told to do something that I know has never worked for me in the past, but I'm going to do what he says because he's the expert or she's the expert. And so then you do, and there's a problem.
Mhm.
And so there's a big difference between not wanting to do something because of your fears or your perception not being accurate in regards to seeing the environment versus going against the feeling that you have in here.
Mhm.
And so when
Yep.
you give up your power, you say, no, I'm not listening to you. I've given my power somewhere else.
Mhm.
And in here is your most powerful guidance, most powerful. But we get stuck up here.
Yeah. That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Oh,
I wished, Romi, that I just could say, oh, well, just do this.
well, you
And
know, in many ways you have. I mean, but it isn't just a snap of the finger. It
no,
is it's a real, it is a discipline of sort. It's a practice.
yeah,
You know, and like I said, I know you just need a little taste of it to know it, and then it's a matter of being able to channel that and also realize that there are some days I just can't. I mean, I have, you know, I have 5 humans at home that I have to take care of that all bring me their stuff, and I can't always let it go. Like
yes.
when I come here, and I am more aware of that now than ever. So
Yep.
that helps so much, you know, to be able to
The
recognize
3-minute
that.
thing that you're going to learn today
Yeah.
is going to be a game changer for
Oh,
you.
I'm so excited.
Absolutely a game changer.
I
Because
appreciate you.
you can do it, as soon as you get out of your car there. You can
Okay.
do it after every single time you have to deal with a family member, because that will remove you from packing their stuff. And
Yeah.
the more often you do this, the easier it gets, and you actually develop neural networks to make the impact greater and greater and greater.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
You're officially on my, like, partner up is on my weekly, you know, I have like a little, I have to keep things in order the best I can in this house. And come Wednesdays, it's like partner up all the way through to Sunday. So it's wonderful. And I
Yeah.
so appreciate you taking the time because I know how long the sessions can be for you. So I'm really happy this worked out because I just knew it was relevant, and I knew that you would have a point of view that would align with what I was feeling, but couldn't quite express it to anyone here. You know,
And that's what
and
I'm here for. So like, as you kind of like chug along and you're trying all this stuff on for size, when you have questions, then
yeah.
best say, hey, I need to get an answer here.
Well, it's a very teachable moment. How about that? We'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
And I look forward to hearing when you're going to go and do something else, and you come and say, I'm setting this over to here. I'm going to go with this. I'm not going to bring any of my stuff to this. So I'm not going to be thinking I need to help him with this because I realize he has to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him the opportunity to see things. So when I walk by that tarp, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, that could be scary for Bastille. I'm walking by the tarp because it means nothing to me.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's so good.
And he has his whatever, as long as he doesn't rip the rope out of your hands, you continue on. You don't need to stop and try to make him get closer to it. You don't need to do anything,
Yeah.
because the time will come when you'll be walking closer and closer and closer to the tarp, and he won't even be paying any attention to it because
Yeah.
you're working within his ability.
He's so interesting because external things, tarps, turkeys, deer, I mean, we've hit it all. And maybe it's because I don't, but I don't think it's just that. He's not, those things don't faze him. It's things that I don't say man as in it couldn't be a woman, but just like that humans have a hand on.
Absolutely.
That
Because
is
it's
what
taught
bothers
him
him.
that there's not congruency. He's been taught that it's not safe.
Yeah.
And so when you approach a turkey, it's congruent.
Yeah.
What you see is what the turkey isn't in his head wondering all of these things. The turkey doesn't have an agenda other than to try to stay alive. So the energetic response is totally different. The turkey,
Mhm.
when you see a turkey, he's not locked in his stall.
Yeah. Right.
He has freedom to evaluate the whole area. He has the freedom to know where he can navigate.
Yeah.
There are no confines with that.
Yeah.
The turkey thing might not be so great if he was locked in his stall.
Sure.
And so we have to start looking at this in some way, how they actually evolved.
Mhm.
And everything about them is geared. And so, like in part one, you'll learn this, but this is really kind of cool. So,
Yeah.
when you walk from outside into the barn, your horse pretty much can't see for 20, 25 minutes.
Oh.
But then when they can see, when their eyes have adjusted, their vision makes ours look horrible.
Mhm.
And so, quite often, that's why it takes horses a long time to settle when you bring them in from the outside into the barn. And quite often, that's why as soon as you're bringing them through the door, they're swinging their heads and they're looking around and whatever, because the vision that they have is very, very limited.
Mhm.
Same thing goes into a horse trailer because a lot of horse trailers aren't light.
Right. That's a good point.
And so we don't think about any of these things. We don't look at the world through how they see the world and how they. So we make up all of these rules about how they should behave based on how we perceive our world, not
Mhm.
how they perceive theirs.
Yeah. That's that light transition is so, he actually walks as though when he hits the stall or the barn floor, even though it's this like fancy rubber, nice little brick stuff, he walks as though he's going to walk into lava. Like
Yeah,
at first, he's like,
completely. And
um,
I'm going to guess the floor is black.
yeah, it's dark. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
have, and so then it's like, yeah, well, is there sinky holes? Is this what? Because it's how they see, like their vision and really
Yeah.
big ticket items. And same as when you're in the barn and then you take
And
them
go
outside,
out.
and it's the
Yeah.
same thing. And
Yep.
so you don't really want to be doing any training kind of things for at least 20, 25 minutes because you want their eyes to adjust so they can see the environment.
Sure. That makes sense. That's such a good tip.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
He
big ticket
thanks you.
items
Yeah.
that we don't even, because we're so used to thinking how we see is what the world is.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I was a horse.
I do with the right owner.
Yeah, true.
Because
True.
I
Yes.
look at so many horses and the expressions on their faces just breaks my heart.
I
So,
know. Yeah, I
so yeah.
know.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'm
thank
so glad
you.
you reached out.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Big hug.
Thank you. I look forward to this week's session, and I will see you guys next week.
All righty. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.